Hey guys, what's up? My name is Starla with Gallagher Farm and Ranch, and tonight starts the first video of our 2022 year and season. I've really been struggling this year with what to make our content about. If you were with us last year, you'll know that a few months ago we got hacked, and so we lost all of our Facebook. We lost basically all of our previous social media stuff, and so well, it was a real bummer, and we weren't sure kind of what we wanted to do or how we wanted to refocus or how we wanted to handle it. One thing we wanted to do for sure was take this opportunity to really focus on what made us us and kind of bring things back to being more about the farm, the homestead, and what we do specifically here compared to maybe other farms or other people that you may know that are, living this life. So first and foremost, I was really trying to think of how to start this year's video, and the first thing I thought of was to do the sheep. So yesterday morning we had a couple of baby sheep, which are lambs, if you've never heard that term. We are not technically in lambing season for us, but we chose to just kind of let them naturally do their thing. We'll go that direction, do their thing this year, as opposed to really, being tight on when we were doing things, because we just wanted to kind of see what their, what their natural situations would be, right? Now with our goats and things, we did that last year, so this is the first time with the sheep that we've kind of just let things happen. But we woke up yesterday morning, 2 baby sheep, or as we call them, lambs, and it was fantastic and really quite a really nice and quite relieving way to come into things in the first part of the new year. So once that happened, it was like, oh man, I realized that I had none of my logs ready for 2022. I had none of my calendars ready. I just was not prepared yet to really realistically be starting 2022. And so today I'm going to go over how we put together our planners and plan the things that are going on the farm. Okay, so I hate when he walks in. It makes me so embarrassed.
Sorry.
He makes a funny face at me, and then I'm like, what? Do I sound funny? Do I look funny? I mean, I always look funny, but that's a different thing. So anyway, so first and foremost, the first thing you absolutely want to make sure you have is your record from last year. So to most people, this probably doesn't look like much. To me, it is the farm know-all for everything last year. It, in combination with a couple other charts that I will discuss later, are really what help me to keep track of what we've done and when. So looking into the first part of this year, I'm gonna plan for multiple months at a time. I really only like to take about 3 months at a time, because so much can change in 3 months, right? And I think looking at 2020, we've all decided that planning too far into the future is just not a good idea, right? Because then you have plans and you're excited about things and everything goes to crap real quick. So I like to take and look at things in a 3-month window or for a quarter. January is very stressful for me. I have to do all the business stuff. If you don't know me at all, then you won't know this, but I actually manage about 5 businesses. So we have our farm, we have our bakery, we have our food truck. I'm also an executive director for a nonprofit organization, and then a year or so ago, almost 3 years ago, my bad, we started a kids nonprofit here locally, and so I do all the paperwork for that. So January for me is very heavy into the paperwork, which means I try to do as little as possible in January, because I have to go back and forth between tax, CPAs and tax people and my records and putting this form together and that form, and it's just a mess, right? But there's one thing that has to be done, and that's the calendar for the farm. So when we're looking at the farm, if you've never done this before and you've never planned out what your farm is going to do, that was something just flew up my nose. Sorry. Anyway, the first thing I like to do before I look at my calendar, before I start pulling this out and going through all the things that happened last year during that month and whatnot, I like to sit down and make a list of my goals specifically. For me, this involves my husband as well, because anything I'm doing, he's doing, right? And he might have other goals than me, and it's just as much his farm as it is mine. So what I will do is I will go through with each business that I have, or each thing that I have, and I will make a column for each of them, and then I will list off the things that I want to do. So, for instance, I've got my regular job, and there's nothing in that because that's a whole other set of paperwork that I've already done. I have our farm here, and so under the farm, we decided that the things we'd really like to do this year are going to be building the horse pen. So we have inherited a couple horses, actually technically a couple donkeys. We already had a pony, but they're in very temporary structures right now, right? So we want to like expand that, give them a barn of some nature, something like that. We would like some kind of a barn, something that's, you know, more of a shelter for them than anything else, something that we can also keep the hay in, so we're not having to take hay from one side of the farm to the other side. Not that we don't want our steps every day, but it can get exhausting. We have our bakery building that we are going to finish this year. By God, come hell or high water, it's going to happen. We want to put bathrooms in so that when people come out to the farm, we can offer camp, because we'd really like to make this an educational facility where kids can come and families can come and even adults can come for like retreats and things like that, or like just summer camp and learn about homesteading, because what we do is so different than most people. So in order to do that, though, you have to have bathrooms, guys. Trust me, living with 5 people in a tiny house with 1 bathroom, you very quickly realize how much you really, really wish you'd have put 2 bathrooms in a place. I'm just saying. Anyway, so bathrooms are definitely at the top of that list. We are working on putting our butcher shop together. If you're new to us and you're new to our channel and our stuff, we are a small animal livestock farm. So we do garden, we do have beef, like cows and whatnot, but for the most part, we are into anything small, and that's because that's my background. I was in 4-H for many years, and doing 4-H, I got to do lots of really cool, fun things, and so I learned a lot about a lot of the smaller livestock, and specifically, I did pigs, and pigs have a soft spot in my heart, or a special place, I guess, and so, in the last 2 years, when I've had pigs various times throughout our marriage. So Ryan and I have been married for 10 years. Can you believe that? And in that time, we've had pigs, I want to say 3 or 4 different times in different places. And, you know, we've had our fair share of chickens or whatnot. But this is the first time that we've actually had like a full-blown breeding program. So I have my breeding swine. I have my breeding sows. I have my breeding boars. We have the babies. We have systems and programs for all of that, and so it's just a little bit different this time. But what I ran into 2 years ago is I had purchased all these pigs, and I had people lined up that were going to purchase them for once they were butchered, and then there was nobody to butcher. And I couldn't get into any slaughterhouses or butcher shops or anything. The wait was like 6 months out. These folks had all been promised their pigs in like 2 months. And so my option was to figure out how to do it myself. And so in doing that, I fell into a business that is really beneficial for our farm. And so now we process animals for other people. We process animals for ourselves. So we actually raise them from the time they are born all the way until butcher, which is actually really nice, because then you know what's being fed to your animals. You know 100% of what goes into them, how they're treated, where they're maintained, the whole bit. And you get to know, too, how they're processed, right? Because that's really important to a lot of people. They want to make sure that the animals aren't tortured and things like that, which is 100% reasonable. So this last year, we've really just done, like, kind of crazy butchering as far as, like, we turned my kitchen, basically, into a butcher shop, and it gets real interesting for a few weeks. And we've tried different types of equipment and stuff, and so now, after 2 seasons of full-blown butchering, we've decided we are, in fact, building a butcher shop. So we have a semi-truck that we purchased from a friend of ours and have been making payments on, and now that it's fully paid off, we're going to outfit it. So that is definitely on the list of things this year, which probably sounds crazy, but if you knew how many animals we had to butcher in a year and how desperate people are for someone to be able to do that, you'd do it too. So, anyway, so butcher shop. 2 years ago, we had a farm store, and we basically just had like a little stand, and it was super cute, and people would come to the farm, they would pet the animals and play with them and whatnot, but it was very temporary, and anytime we had any kind of weather, it was rough. And so we want to do something that's a little bit more sustainable, I guess. I don't know how to describe that. But if we can't get to it, that's okay. There's always next year, right? So we just kind of went through and put like all the things that we would want to do for here. And then for like the nonprofit and stuff, we've got our other things and so on and so forth. So that's the first step. Knowing what you want, right? Because if you know what you want, you can make a plan on how to get there. So at any farm, any homestead, that's going to be the number one thing, is you have to know where you're going. Because if you don't, and you don't know what your goal is at the end of the day, what's going to happen is you're going to end up with a little bit over here, and 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 you're going to be running around like a chicken with your head cut off, and there's going to be no guidance and no direction on any of those projects, and so ultimately you're never going to get anywhere with any of it. And farming is really hard to begin with because you have to put so much into it that first 2 to 3, 4 years for such a small return. And so if you're wasting that energy of yours on this thing over here and that thing over here and not actually accomplishing anything, you're going to get really frustrated really quickly, and especially if you're by yourself. We're super blessed. We do have about 4 people that work the farm with us, and I can honestly tell you, without them, it is very difficult for us to manage anything because we are still in this building phase. And so with all these different projects, we have a person basically designated to each thing, and that's their baby to make sure it gets done, because without that it gets crazy, real crazy. So anyway, first and foremost, we sat down and we said this is what we want to do. And then from there we decided how we were going to do it with actual honest to goodness, people will call these objectives, right? So a goal is something that you want or something you're working towards, and then you have your objectives, and your objectives are going to be how you're going to actually get there. So for instance, we've already lined up with a friend of ours. He's coming down in March, and he's going to help us to finish the remodel on our house, and he's also going to build the bakery building. But in order for him to build the bakery building, we have got to get the cement done. So in order for that to happen, we know that we have this 8-week window in order to get the cement done. So from there, we go put it in our calendar, right? And we make sure that we have the time allotted in that time period to get the project done. And that way we have tangible objectives that we can then work on, right? But as is always the case on a farm, you've got all the things that are unexpected. Every single thing that you could possibly think of to go wrong is going to go wrong, and everything that you could possibly come up with or forget to remember, it's going to happen. So that's why we have this one, okay? So basically what I do is I keep a journal, per se, in my, I don't know, what is this called, planner? Sorry, in my planner from the year before. So as you can see, January is very kind of casual, and the reason for that is, like I was saying, I have a lot of paperwork that I do. So I try very hard to make it so that January doesn't have a lot in it because I just get overwhelmed with the paperwork I have to do. So first and foremost, I go through and I'll just look at last year's January. So last year, all my pigs were bred prior to me getting them. And so I was having babies, and it was my first time having babies. I didn't know the ins and outs of having babies. I didn't know what to expect. It was crazy. It was a mess. We had snowstorms, and it was ridiculous, okay? So when it came to breeding this year, I knew that that was something I did not want to do. So this year, I do not have any animals that are bred right now, with the exception of the sheep. And the reason the sheep were left is because sheep are pretty well managing. They just take care of it. You walk outside and you're like, oh, there's a baby sheep. Awesome. Very rarely does a sheep really need help with their babies. I think in the 2 seasons we've had now with sheep, I think we've had one time where the mom rejected the babies, and we were right there. I mean, we saw them, so we were able to take the babies, and it was okay. But I mean, that was like one time out of, I think we've had 15 births now. So, you know, not that big of a deal when you're considering 1 out of 15 compared to like pigs. One pig can have up to 16 babies, and I have 2 mamas last year that just straight up like nothing wanting to do with them. So anyway, so a lot of the things in January here were with regards to pigs last year, and I purposely planned this year to not have that be the case, because I knew that as a homesteader and as a farmer, more importantly as a farmer, I did not want to be doing that. So I planned their breeding chart. So that's something else that you have to think about when you're getting ready to do this, because not only do you have to plan for when the babies are coming, but if you want them at a certain time, you have to breed them at a certain time, right? So I know that I want my goats to have their babies in, say, March or April, which means I have to plan for them to be breeding right now, right? So these are the kind of things I'm talking about when it comes to the farm planning that are weird, but you plan that stuff. So anywho, and then in addition to that, I've got notes on like when we started our brassicas. Brassicas are going to be our cold hardy plants, things like broccoli and cabbage, things like that can handle kind of freezing temperature and stuff. And then just other little things here and there. You know, one of our friends was having babies, so more than likely he's going to have babies again. And the reason that I wrote that down was so that I would be prepared to help him if he needed help, because I'm one of the few people that knows things about animals in our area, and so a lot of times when other people are struggling, I'm the one that gets called. And knowing that he may have issues again this year, and that's his breeding schedule, makes it so that I'm a little bit more prepared, because I've planned for my schedule to be a little bit lighter. So anyway, that's a side note thing. Plus, sometimes you'll have 4-H kids and things that need help too. And then past that, I just have like little events that I did last year, so like farmers markets in here, but that's basically it, right? So when I sit down, I know what I did last year, I reviewed that. Now I'm going to go back to my list of things that I want to do, and I'm going to say, okay, so what are the things I'm trying to accomplish? Well, I know that my friend is coming in March, so that means I have January and February to pour cement, so that's something I have to do. I also know that I want to breed my goats so that they'll have babies in April and May, so that's something I have to account for. And these are the kind of things I'm going to go through and put in my January and my February and my March, right? And I'm going to take the time to write this all out and go through it so that when it happens or when it comes up, I'm prepared. And here's a perfect example of that. So for instance, last year I had all my pigs, right? They were all breeding, or they were all bred to have their babies in the first part of January. So what I had done, knowing that my pigs were going to farrow, kind of a window, you know, not exactly, but you have a window, right? I went through and I was like, hey, such and such is due at this time, and then I would count, okay, so I need to castrate within 3 weeks of that. So I would go to the next, I would count my 3 weeks, and I would say, hey, you need to do your first castration and your first set of worming around this day, right? And then I would go through and go, okay, so the piglets will be ready for their new homes at 8 weeks, and I would count that out. And so then I would have, 8 weeks, here's when you can get rid of those piglets. And the reason for that is not because those are going to be exact, right? It's not because I'm expecting my pigs are going to have piglets on this day, and I'm going to castrate on this day, and I'm going to sell those piglets all on this day. Like, it doesn't work that way. But it makes it so that I am planning time for these activities to occur as a farmer. Like, I need to make sure that I have that time to give to those different activities. So, anywho. So, my first suggestion, go through, make your goals list, and then figure out what your objectives are going to be. Again, those are going to be how you're going to actually accomplish those goals. and your time frames for when you want to accomplish those goals, and then sit down and make out your first 3-month plan, okay? 3 months. And if you are lucky enough to have a binder from last year, because this is your second or third or fourth year or whatnot, use it. Do not throw this away. Keep it, even though it's, no longer of quote use, and refer back to it. And then if you didn't already, if you're not already doing this, start taking really elaborate notes in your journal and the reason, or in your calendar. The reason for it is that, typically speaking, at the end of the year, you're still going to have this calendar, right? You're going to have it in your possession because you've been using it so frequently, because it's been with you, for the most part, every day. You've probably gone and looked at it to see what it is. And maybe it's not perfect, you might not have everything, but if you write things down as you're going, for instance, I would write, oh, we butchered a pig this day, and oh, we did XYZ this day, and oh, we did, I made a payment for that this day. These are the things that will help you going the next year that you don't even realize. For instance, I'm getting ready to work on taxes, and I completely forgot that I need to include all of my payments for my reefer truck. But I wrote it down. So now I will go, oh yeah, I forgot. I paid XYZ amount of money for that reefer truck, and this is my reminder of what I did throughout this last year. So, not a perfect system by any means, but it will help. Anyway, I hope that you guys find some of this information useful. I know this is kind of a more boring video, so I'm going to go ahead and throw some babies in here at the end of this, just to make the video a little bit more fun. And because we did have those super gorgeous little sheep, I keep saying sheep, but I should be saying lambs. The baby lambs yesterday, and what's not to love about a baby lamb? What can I say? Anyway, Happy New Year from Gallagher Farm and Ranch. We hope you guys will enjoy all of the videos to come and all the fun and exciting projects, because we got a lot of them, and adventures that we're going to have. So, be blessed. We'll see you next time. Look at Mommy. Look at her. We've got a little black one and a little brown one. Look how cute it is. Huh? Yeah, because she didn't stop editing it. She probably got another one of it. I know, I love it. So cute, so cute. Huh? I know. One of the other sheep went on the same day. I want to say it was her and Moon or something like that. The two white ones. But, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we did. So. Yeah. The bottle babies, Mom.
This one, the tan one. I think these three were hers.
I know, right?
Where are we on chores, buddy? Has anybody been fed yet?
That's the pig that
You want to name them?
Yeah.
Okay, well, think of... already have a moon and star, you silly goose. No, we have a Chips Ahoy. Actually, you guys, we have to figure out what theme we're gonna go with this year. Because last year, so first year we went with everything being an E sound, and then this year, everything was named an O sound. Magoo, Margot, so on. Picasso. So. I know, they're so cute, aren't they? Sure, go talk to her. Hey guys, so I was just sitting here doing my nails and editing this video, and one of the clips, the animal clip that I was showing you guys with the sheep, reminded me of something that I also do as kind of like a safety guard for myself. Every year we pick out a sound or a theme for our animals, and so anything that comes on the farm in that year that we name, which is very exception. Try this again. Okay. Gets a certain ending to their name. So our first year was anything that came to the farm ended with an E. So we had Katie, Maggie, we had Daisy, which was one of our cows, things like that. So anybody, Reese, so on and so forth. So anyone that has an E at the end of the name, Spotty, they all came to the farm that first year that we were here starting. And then last year, anybody that was either born on the farm or that was purchased and brought to the farm to be a part of Gallagher Farm ended with an O. So we had all of our goat babies, for instance, from Margot, Magoo, we had Mellow, Coco, we had a Salt and Pepper in there. Don't ask me why, that was my kid's thing. Anyway, but for the most part, they all ended with O. And then we just, so this year we haven't come up with what our thing's going to be. So if anyone has any suggestions for the baby lambs that were born yesterday, feel free to shoot us a message with that, because we're always looking for fun and creative things. Years ago, we had a set of animals before we had to move to New Mexico, and we had gone with all the animals had tree names, so we had, or plant names. So we had Juniper and Lilac and Rose and so on. And then with our dogs, all of our dogs up until this year, don't ask me why, but all of our dogs have always had rock names. So we had a Crystal, we had a Slate, we had a Borax, and now we have a Gabby. I did not name her that, just for the record. But anyway, so we try to theme our names. So little tidbit there, so you'll know when things came to our farm. Anyway, that's just another way that I help myself with kind of documenting things and what's come on the farm in addition to my calendar, as I try to put little systems in place so that not only myself but other people will know as well if they know the system for the farm. So again, I hope you guys really enjoyed this, and we'll see you next time.